there are still one or two ministers who are in the middle of negotiations. So there wasn't just a summit between the Prime Minister and the President, but in every area where there are significant Hungarian interests falling under government jurisdiction, bilateral discussions at the ministerial level have also taken place. The Minister of Economy, the Minister of Defense, the Minister responsible for Innovation and Cultural Affairs, who is still negotiating at this very moment, to name just a few. And there are also the business people, whose summary of the negotiation results we will receive this evening, local time. As for our work, the most important thing, the duty I must now fulfill, is that you may have heard when we entered the White House that the President of the United States of America expressed his high regard for Hungary, that he greets the Hungarian people, that he holds Hungary in high esteem, that he places it in high regard, perhaps even with a better opinion than we have of ourselves. He knows the names of Hungarians who have greatly contributed to the development of the United States. He sees us not only as a distant country, but as a nation whose citizens who came here have brought much glory and many achievements to the United States. His expression of high regard is not just diplomacy or courtesy, it has real substance. I myself felt that it was a sincere friendship and recognition toward Hungary which set the tone and framework for the negotiations. On this subject, I can say that two allied heads of state discussed matters together. We did not identify any essential issue on which the opinions of these two allied states, the largest and the smallest, would diverge or come into conflict. So there is no strategic difference or clash between the interests of the two countries. On the contrary, there are several points of agreement between the interests of the two countries. And there were also matters to be settled on this subject. We discussed them at length. The first and most important thing is that we managed to protect the reduction in energy bills. Thus, Hungary will continue to have the lowest energy prices in Europe. We have created all the necessary prerequisites, which concretely means that, in the case of the Turkish Stream and the Ruhba pipeline, we have obtained a total exemption from sanctions. There are no sanctions that would limit or increase the cost of Hungary's supply from there. This is a general exemption with no time limit. We have reached an agreement on issues of nuclear cooperation. We have agreed that Westinghouse will become involved in the Hungarian nuclear industry. This is something new. The Americans had never previously participated in the Hungarian nuclear industry. Now this is going to happen. First, we will purchase fuel from Westinghouse. Secondly, there are these small modular reactors that you have read about in articles which represent a completely new technology in the history of energy and in which the Americans possess advanced technology. We do not have this technology ourselves, and we have agreed to introduce American technology in Hungary as early as next week. For this purpose, by the way, we will have to amend a few laws that are already before Parliament. We are paving the way for the emergence of this type of small nuclear power plants in Hungary. And thirdly, we have agreed to acquire American technology, which is better than ours, more modern than what we currently use, and will allow us to store spent fuel under safe conditions. In the field of nuclear energy, a significant obstacle to cooperation was that the Biden administration had previously imposed sanctions on the construction of the Pact 2 nuclear power plant in Hungary. We had already obtained an exemption from these sanctions. The deadline for this exemption was dangerously close, and we agreed that this exemption from the sanctions would not be extended, but that the sanction itself would simply be lifted. Thus, there is no longer any American objection to the construction of the Pact 2 power plant in Hungary. No action will be taken to prevent it. And if such sanction-related obstacles have arisen until now, they are now a thing of the past. The next important thing we agreed on is that the United States has an interest in Hungary's financial stability, and that Hungary can therefore count on the United States to preserve, strengthen, and maintain its financial stability. That is why we will establish new forms of American-Hungarian financial cooperation. We have agreed on this, and negotiations are underway and ongoing. Next, we reviewed American investments in Hungary. We asked the President, as well as the United States and himself personally, to support these investments and the new ones that will follow. Personally, We received this support so more American investments will be coming to Hungary. To put the importance of this into perspective, you should know that about 1,400 American companies operate in Hungary. These 1,400 have investments, and about 100,000 of our compatriots earn their living and support their families in these companies. The number of these job opportunities will increase. Moreover, these investments are typically all high-tech investments. So they are important not only for job creation, but also for raising the technological level of the Hungarian economy. They have already done so and will continue to do so. And finally, we have reached an agreement on matters concerning the defense industry and space cooperation. The cooperating parties have been designated and negotiations are underway. This means both American participation in investments in the space industry as well as cooperation in the defense industry, including access to the most modern defense weaponry, which, by the way, had previously been blocked by the Biden administration. And of course, we spoke at length about the issue of war and peace. I can sum up this conversation and these extensive negotiations in 2 sentences. The first is as follows. We must continue to work towards creating peace. Both governments are determined to continue efforts or establish the conditions to create peace. Hungary explicitly offers its own capabilities to assist the President of the United States in the matter of the Russia-Ukraine war in the pursuit of peace. And the second sentence is as follows. The Budapest meeting is on the agenda. And when the conditions are met for this, no one can say exactly when for now this meeting will take place in Budapest. Peter, that's everything, right? What happened is exactly what the president had announced during the earlier press conference. We sat down and examined the issue. After this review, we concluded that Hungary is in a significantly different situation compared to other European countries, and that it is not possible to hold a meeting. It is not possible to maintain a secure energy supply for Hungary, nor to provide energy at an affordable price to Hungarian families and businesses if sanctions continue to exist on the 2 key pipelines in this regard. We examined this and confirmed it. Then, since this is the case, we asked the president to lift these sanctions. We requested a complete exemption from sanctions for 2 pipelines, one that brings gas from the south and the other that brings oil from the east. And we reached an agreement. The president decided and said that these sanctions would not apply to these 2 pipelines. A few weeks ago, the Americans announced this sanctions regime that they generally apply to Russian energy regardless of how it affects each country. We are not the first. Other countries have already requested some kind of exception. For example, the Germans requested an exception for a refinery, to be precise. This general sanctions regime would have completely brought us to our knees. You have to imagine it as follows. Starting from the end of November, every Hungarian household would have paid 2.5 to 3 times more for their energy bills than in October or November. This would have meant, on a Hungarian scale, an unbearable price increase for households. Not to mention businesses. A good number of them would have gone bankrupt, closed their doors. We would have faced massive unemployment. That was the danger. I didn't want to dramatize it because we didn't talk about it for a long time. I mentioned it for the first time with the necessary weight on the plane. But the situation was that we were caught in a vice or already had a noose around our neck, and we had to get out of it skillfully. That happened today. And we mainly owe it to Minister Peter Szijjártó because the preparation of the final decision was in his hands. And after a relatively long conversation about what needed to be done, we had convincing arguments, those presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs already during the preparation phase, on which the American president was able to nod in agreement. So, for the members of the delegation, it was as if several ton stones had been lifted from their hearts. And we didn't have to deal with crisis plans B, C, or D because in the end, we resolved the matter this way. I repeat, if this agreement had not been reached in December, energy bills for every household would have been 2.5 to 3 times higher than they are today. We managed to protect ourselves from this misfortune. American investments create jobs where people work and earn an income. These are well-paid jobs that require high qualifications, so they will raise the standard of living in Hungary. We also have to tell the truth, even if we didn't have to discuss it. Hungary also has investments in the United States. It's no coincidence that several Hungarian entrepreneurs are here. Hungarian companies are investing significant amounts in the United States. This is talked about less. Hungary has moved beyond the stage where it only receives investments. Now, we are investing abroad. Perhaps that's not the most elegant Hungarian expression. Not only are people investing in us, but we are also investing elsewhere in the United States. And it's no coincidence that I asked the leaders of major Hungarian companies to come, because I am convinced that there has never been such an opportunity before, and I don't know when there will be such a favorable political and business environment again for Hungarian investors to do good business in the United States. We have now opened all the doors. Our star is rising high. Hungary's recognition is excellent. All the political support behind Hungary has been visible to the entire United States. If there are good deals now, talented entrepreneurs, investment plans, they can be realized in the United States. Hungarians can do business in the United States now. This is an opportunity that will not come again. And of course, this is good for the Hungarian economy. The American president is interested in European politics because, after all, we belong to an allied camp. We are talking about transatlantic cooperation. This has two sides. Just as Europeans are interested in what happens in America, Americans are also interested in what happens in Europe. This is completely natural in an allied system. I wanted to clarify that I never ask anyone for outside help to resolve our disputes within the European Union. We are strong enough. Our positions are quite good. We have enough tools at our disposal to win these battles with our own national strength. That is what I meant in those few sentences you are now referring to. The United States, from what I understood today, does not want to interfere in European affairs. There are important issues for Europe and for the United States. There are some where there is agreement in opinion, and there are some where there are differences of opinion. And where there are differences of opinion, America wants to win this debate against Europe in its favor, which is why I think the right European approach is to continually put forward proposals for American-European cooperation that are beneficial for both sides, that do not doom us to defeat, and that also allow the Americans to get what they want. So, as they say, we need to create win-win situations. There are always some. I consider the agreement we reached with the United States on customs issues to be of a very low standard on the part of the European Union. It is a professionally incompetent, shameful, horrible agreement. Instead of that, I'm not just saying in Budapest, but I think that in a few major European capitals, much higher level proposals could have been put on the table, and we would have reached a better agreement than the one negotiated here by the Brussels bureaucracy. And that's my opinion. But that doesn't mean that any of us is interfering in each other's affairs. But there are issues where interests diverge, and harmonizing them requires certain intellectual and also political efforts. And Europe doesn't perform well in that regard. The Americans are basically crushing us. That's the way things are for us today. I can say a few things about this. We've talked a lot about energy here, but energy is not the future. The industry and economy of the future lie elsewhere, and we've already talked a lot about this and will continue to discuss it with the Americans, but also with others in the coming period. The entire global economy is on the brink of a technological era shift, an extremely rapid process. We thought we understood this process. We're trying to connect to it. Artificial intelligence, the space industry, telecommunications, to name just a few key sectors, energy is the prerequisite for all of them. In the new world that is soon to emerge before our eyes, technologically speaking, we will consume enormous amounts of energy, but not to heat our apartments, because that's just how it is. But we will need new capacities, because the new modern technology will be extremely energy hungry. These enormous databases that form the foundation of the new modern global economy, their storage, processing, and use require vast amounts of energy. Today we talked about energy. But that's not the goal, it's only a tool. The goal is to create a completely new, modern, 21st century Hungarian economy. That's why we negotiated on the space industry, the defense industry, and issues concerning the most advanced technologies. It's worth it now. Of course, everyone back home sees everything in the context of elections. But sometimes it's worth taking your head out of that and seeing that Hungary must carry out a massive transformation of its economy if it wants to remain among the countries of the modern global economy. Artificial intelligence, space exploration, and so on. That's why, even though terms like space industry still sound like science fiction now, they will soon become part of everyday technology. That's why we already need to be involved in these ventures now. Thank you, Mr. Peter.